All right. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for wanting to chat and watch us in our January Dinner with the Devs. We have a lot of fun things to talk about based on the polling that you guys voted on. We're going to talk about new games in 2019 and some different gaming trends that are going on. And then we're going to provide some updates of the studio and what we have going on around here. I'm Dwayne with the marketing team here at Schell Games, and then we'll go from here over.
All right. I'm Dan Lynn. I'm advanced artist at Schell Games.
I'm Chris Hatch, game engineer here at Schell Games.
And I'm Michael Lee. I'm also an advanced engineer at Schell. So we're all at Schell.
Yeah, we all are here at Schell Games.
Autopilot.
Imagine that. So, polar vortex or Arctic blast or whatever happened in the East Coast, we are all here. Even though all the schools are canceled today and tomorrow for the most part. So I had some trouble coming in today. not as much trouble as others.
Yeah.
But if you guys are home playing games, ask questions, please. We want the conversation to be driven by you. So before we get to that, though, we just had an event this past weekend called Global Game Jam, and we have some award winners from the weekend and some organizer here, and so they'll talk a little bit more about what Global Game Jam is, how you guys organize, and some of the things that happened during the weekend. Ask questions, please.
Sorry. Yeah. So for people who don't know, Global Game Jam is an annual event where this past weekend, hundreds of sites around the world all sort of at the same time host a game jam. So this year the theme was what home means to you, and we have a site here in Pittsburgh. This year we're at Carnegie Mellon at the new Tepper Quadrangle, and it was actually so just as a quick introduction, Dan and I we were the two coordinators, organizers for the event, and Chris was on one of the teams that won an award in the event. So the game jam this year, Pittsburgh, we've always had like a really large game jam, but this year we finally combined both the jam that we host through the local IGDA chapter and also the one that's hosted on CMU.
Oh, okay.
So we combined them all into one big mega game jam. And so we had 203 jammers make 44 games over the weekend, which makes us, I believe, the 6th largest site in the U.S.
Oh, no way.
So last year was 9th. So.
Yeah. So we're moving on now. So that's probably as high as we'll get, honestly, because like the bigger sites are all like crazy corporate campus sites. And then and also like some larger universities. But yeah, so this was our first time holding it in a new Tepper Quad. It was a really cool space. I think all the jammers had a really good time. And yeah, it was even despite how cold it was this weekend, I think it went really smoothly. And there are a lot of really, really interesting, very cool, fun games made in just 48 hours. So.
Very cool.
So making a game 48 hours. So I think something that we try to do here in Pittsburgh is all the meals are catered, and then we also had a lot of volunteers just helping us out. So the event went pretty smoothly, and people just go there, jam, enjoy food and snacks, midnight waffles.
Midnight waffles, that's pretty clutch. So, Chris, what was your game about? And you said the theme was what home means to you.
Yep.
Yeah, so my team kind of took that and we went a lot of weird ways. We spent actually 6 hours trying to figure out what the game design would be. And finally at the 6th hour, we just took a step back from like abstract and crazy, technically like good game ideas. And we were like, I don't think anybody's gonna have fun with this, but it would be like mentally like cool. So we just said like, okay, what would just be like instinctually cool, just like reactive, like fun, exciting game. So we kind of landed on an Overcooked style game. Is the easiest way to explain it, but you're basically a set of movers. So you're a team of movers, 1 to 4 players, local co-op, people like Xbox controllers, PS4 controllers, whatever you have. and you move in a house. So you basically take this empty shell of a house and then you make it a home. So like, what does home mean to you? We kind of diluted it down to like a couple different things, but one of those was just like stuff or stuff that you have acquired over the years that has sentimental attachment. So your job in the game is to basically like take that stuff from the lawn as the moving company and move it into the house where that woman wants it. So it's kind of this physicsy based game where you actually have to grab it from like multiple sides. You can have your teammates help you pick up the objects, and then more people, the easier it is to move the larger objects and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, no, it's super fun. Yeah, making a game in 48 hours is a lot of fun, but it's also like a lot. You don't get much sleep.
Yep.
It's pretty stressful at times, but when you come out of it, it's actually a lot of fun.
Very cool. So, did you guys get a chance to play some of the other games that were made? What were some that stuck out to you?
Yeah, so at the end, so technically our jam we hosted a little less than 48 hours, and part of that is because it goes from 6 p.m. to 6 p.m. 6 p.m. on Friday to 6 p.m. on Sunday. But at 3 p.m. on Sunday, we actually close shop and have everyone sort of set up, and we have what we call the Sunday showcase. And so everyone gets a chance to like, here's the thing that we made over the weekend. Because when you're working on the games or you're organizing, you don't have time to really play anything. And that's also a chance where we invite judges from all around different organizations and different places in Pittsburgh to come and help sort of judge all the games on different criteria. So we have awards for technical excellence, artistic excellence, best use of the theme, and then we have like an audience choice awards and a judge's choice award.
Very cool.
So I'll be honest, as an organizer, I didn't have a ton of time to play a lot of the games, but I know there's definitely some ones that are big audience favorites. So
Yeah. So I was mostly running around helping out the judges, but because of that, I was able to see a lot of games. So I know like the one that won the audience award, it was called Time for Bed.
Okay.
And basically, it was like an asymmetrical multiplayer game where one person was playing the mom, and the other three players were playing like the kids. And they're basically like, basically the kids are trying to run around the house, and mom's trying to catch them so she can take them and go to bed.
Yeah.
So, and the art style is really cute, so that looked pretty fun. There was another game that was also more competitive, and it was about buying stuff in a supermarket and upgrading your home. I think it was like beating up on the Jonesies or something it was called.
Okay.
And so every time you would buy an item, your home would get like a little more extravagant. And basically you're trying to build the most extravagant home, and whoever like reached like the set price of like, oh, I'm now like a billionaire home or whatever, then that person would win. But you could do stuff like, as you're carrying stuff out of the store, you could push people out of the way, push them down, grab their stuff. So it was pretty fun.
Yeah, it was like a Black Friday simulator. It's
Oh.
basically like the way I like absorbed it, and yeah, you like pick the, went to the shop, grab the stuff. No, that was a good one.
Yeah, I think there were some really cool experiments too. Like I know there was one developer who wrote his own game engine, and the game was based off of like, it was all completely like ray traced real time.
Okay.
And it was based off of like the reflections. You have to navigate looking at the reflections of like the sphere that you're controlling.
Oh, wow.
And then
it's even though most of the games are digital games, not all of them have to be. And one of the games was I think it was called Take Us Home, and it was a card game sort of about taking pets from a shelter and finding a home for them.
Oh, that's cool.
So that was a nice sentimental
Yeah.
use of the theme. So, and it was like played like a normal. I'm not a card game guy, but it was like a little like a trading card game sort of style. So.
Okay. Oh, that's cool. That's cool. So, well, I guess maybe except for the card game, most of the digital games could be found on the Global Game Jam Pittsburgh
So,
section.
Yeah, so if you just go to globalgamejam.org and you search for Pittsburgh, you'll be able to find our site.
Yes.
And then hopefully everyone has uploaded their game by
hopefully
now.
everyone has uploaded their games.
And even the physical games, they upload the rules and the print. I think they
Oh,
uploaded
okay.
the printable card set, so if you wanted to try it out.
Oh,
But
that's
yeah, most
cool.
people
Well, I guess it maybe
upload their game, so you just need to download it or click, if it's online, click on the link and be able to play it.
Yeah.
And it's a game jam game, so go in with like reasonable expectations.
Really?
Also, don't. It's always might not run on everything. Might not be the most performant, but I think I really enjoyed the theme this year, and I think the games that came out were really fun.
Yeah, I think because of the theme, people thought a little more deeply about what is important.
Sure.
I think the games that came out reflect that.
Very cool. Yeah, so, what was it? So, I totally lost it. So with the games, yeah, like you said, it's not even 48 hours, so a lot of them were made 45-ish. So the fact that you can have so many games made in that little bit of time is really incredible.
Well, like Chris, you had 5 people? on your team?
4 people.
4 people, yeah. So
So there's 4 people on the team, and like I said, we spent almost 6 hours just figuring out what the idea was. So you
Yeah.
can eliminate, slice those off of our hours available too. I mean, realistically, we basically had Saturday and then Sunday morning is what we developed the whole game.
so a lot of them were made 45.
But it's also exciting because it pushes you to just be like, just do it. Oftentimes you can spend so much time trying to figure out what the right thing to do is.
Yeah.
When if you have a solution, just do it. Well, you're forced to do it. And you can get a lot more done than you think, but it is also you have to worry about scope control and know where your limitations are because you can end up with a game that is just like there's no loop and you just have a lot of little pieces and you're like. These are all really cool independently, but like, how do I play it? You just like look at the person that's like trying it out. You're like, I don't know. This is cool though, right? And they're like, yep. And then they just.
your team was definitely one of the better ones though, because one of the things we like to do is our volunteers, we have different kinds of volunteers. Some are helping with the food, some are helping with cleaning, and we have volunteers that are play testers. And we had a lot of going around, play testers would go to the teams, it's like, hey, do you need someone to play your game, give some feedback? And there are a lot of teams this year who are like, we're not ready yet, come back in a few hours. It's like, well, in a few hours, the jam is done. So you need to have something. So.
Yeah, we're thinking maybe because they're working on narrative experience, it's like, oh, this narrative has to be finished and complete before we can show someone.
Mm-hmm.
But I think even if you have like the main beats in there, I think it's good enough just to get some feedback.
That's cool. Yeah, I mean, I'm always impressed at whenever people start showing the games that they made over the weekend for the game jams of just how the games are done is just really cool. So if you could give any additional advice of the people out there who are hesitant of joining a game jam or think they need more information about it, what would you guys tell them? Yeah, I mean, I'm always.
Yeah, for anybody hesitant to do it, don't hesitate. I did my first game jam like 6 years ago or 5 years ago here, and I came in as like a first-year student, as like a 3-art student of all things, and I like barely knew how to make anything that was actually like performant and correct. But it didn't stop me, and I hope it doesn't stop you if you're kind of really green at what you do, because there's always a slot for you. Even if you spent like the full 2 days making one model, that's totally fine because you have practice, and you can probably still help some team out, regardless of where your skill set's at. And it is part of like the experience is just to learn. And some of the people like. Especially for students, I would suggest it. You guys are the least likely to be confident to join, but I would highly suggest you do join because you kind of get a little bit of like real world studio experience if you team up with some experienced people. The idea of like a pipeline, like pre-production, production phase, like you don't quite get that on every team, but you do get some sort of exposure to that like pipeline of what's correct, what's not correct to do.
And then, even if you go in your first time and you make a game that doesn't come together at the end, or you don't even make a game, you have like a series of assets. That's a valuable learning experience. A lot of people, it's like your first game jam is oftentimes going to be really rocky, but then you come back the next year or the next game jam, and now like, oh, we probably shouldn't spend 12 hours trying to think of a game idea. And it's like, okay, now you can iterate and learn from that experience.
Yeah, I think one thing is that you can hear about tips about like, oh, you could do this or you could do that. But experiencing them and then knowing that those tips are real or that you can, it's like, oh, okay, I shouldn't do this the next time, or oh, this worked out really well this time. I think that helps a lot.
Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, go for it.
No, I was just gonna say like my first game jam, we made an entire game in this like proprietary game engine. It was like an old school like Xbox 360. I can't remember what it's like X and A.
Oh yeah,
platform,
like X and A or something.
yeah, so like we were built it all in this X and A, and we get to like basically like the end of the first like actual day, and collision didn't work, and the engineers that were on the team at the time had no idea how to get collision. So on the like second half, we had to port the whole game to Unity.
Oh wow.
And so it's like it's one thing to make it in 2 days, but to make it once and then make it again. Needless to say, that didn't end great, but we still learned a lot, and I'm still happy I went for it to do it. You know, to do it.
Yeah. So, oh, and that's again, those are fun experiences, and you'll meet new people, and you'll find out things about yourself when it comes down to like when you're working at 3 a.m. and it's like, oh, maybe this is actually what I really want to do versus something where it's like, oh, maybe I don't want to be a writer on a game. Trying to come up with like 10 lines for every character in our game.
Yeah. Very cool, very cool. So we have some questions coming in, and it kind of leads us into what we may be excited to see in 2019, and some games that have been announced. Pittsburgh Joe asks he asks, do you know of any details on equipment coming to GDC? GDC, the Game Developers Conference, for those unfamiliar, virtual reality gloves or any headsets or anything. And so we see this in the news that, I forget who it was. No, I think it was Cloudhead Gaming that shared a picture, and it was super grainy of some type of a headset that might be proprietary, and people are trying to figure out if the VR treadmills are actually going to be a thing. I haven't heard of anything crazy going to be at GDC. Have you guys? Headsets?
Not really.
Anything.
We're not going to know any more than most of you guys, because we don't work at those companies.
Yeah.
So we don't really know what's on the horizon unless we have something internal that like, but those usually don't line up specifically with like an event like GDC.
Yeah, GDC tends, it's developer focused, so it tends not to be a place to announce hardware. It's a good place to show off hardware that has been announced but maybe hasn't been released yet. So, and that's where a lot of times companies will come in to try to they want to encourage. It's like, oh, we really want developers to work on this, so we have a new library, we have a new API or something.
Yeah,
and that's where they're going to make their pitch.
Yeah, if the new platform is released, they'll be like, hey, this is the system that developers can work in, and here's like the revenue split or something like that.
Yeah, stuff like that. So, like, I expect like someone like Epic this year will probably be there with a pretty big presence, trying to recruit people for the Epic Game Store. Yeah.
Speaking of all the game stores, I was going to get to that. Have you guys seen? So there's just been a proliferation of game stores. So Steam is still the big guy, but you have the Epic Store making a lot of noise. You have Cartridge. I don't know if Cartridge is still in beta or not with their store, and how they're teaming up with this company called Indie Mega Booth that's trying to showcase different indie games. And so that's really cool. But then you have, I was just going through email all the different types of games that have been, game stores. There's this one called Robot Cache. I don't know if you guys have heard of that one. They're a digital game reseller that's DRM free. So I thought that was interesting, and I think that's going to be a trend in 2019 that I would be interested in seeing, about how stores try to position themselves. Now this is me and my marketing background, right? So it's like which store is going to be good for different developers and different games. So that's what I'm interested in seeing in 2019. But what are some things that you guys have been taking a look at?
I want to touch on the stores a little bit more.
Go for it.
I am really interested in that.
Yeah.
Because Steam has been I think the latest GDC, that whole state of the game industry, it's still something like 50-something% of PC downloads, and I feel like that's really higher if you take away like the direct sales. Like if it's actually people going to a store and don't know about the game, it's probably closer to like 70%. You know, like of most people you hear about Steam games, but yeah, like there's the Epic Games Store, but you also missed one, Discord.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yep.
Discord also, which you would never think, but that whoever's running that company is doing a great job because they seem to like pick out the perfect thing and then execute it on it really, really well. And the Discord store seems to be pretty good.
Twitch
Yeah.
also has its own
Twitch,
store.
yeah, it's
Twitch has its
kinda
own store.
interesting.
Oh, I didn't know
Yeah,
that.
'cause of-
Yeah.
yeah, it's like Amazon, because
Oh, yeah.
Amazon bought it and everything, so.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I think it's exciting because for us as developers, like Steam is like 30% cut. It's the same way that like the Apple App Store is, Google and all of those. Like their cut is it's always been generally 30%. And so you have to think of yourself, I'm making 70% on every game I sell. And then like Epic Games comes in and loudly says it because they just have so much money. So they could just loudly make moves like, oh yeah, the Division 2, we're just gonna buy exclusive rights to that and give however many millions of dollars to the developers of, you know, to Ubisoft, and they can do those types of moves. But then on that side, get that name, like that huge moment, and then a headline, and you get that like exposure. But theirs is 18%, so it's almost like 50% more money in your pocket, which is it's a huge kind of like, oh, I can make another. Let's say you sell 1,000 games, you know.
And it's not
You get
just that
$150
cut.
back in your pocket, or $1,000.
Yeah, it's not just the lower cut, it's also the fact that, if you're using the Unreal Engine, you don't need to give the percentage, I think it's like 5%, they like
Oh,
waive that too.
really? If you use their store?
Yeah, if you use their store.
That's
Oh, wow.
huge.
Yeah, so
That's
still,
huge.
yeah, it reminds, because I remember when these, like the first digital stores came up, because it used to be like the old, in the
old days.
and you just had to go through a publisher, right?
Yeah.
And the publisher, it was like, back then it was like the inverse, they would take 70 and you'd get like 30 or 75, 25.
Yeah.
And then it was a revelation when someone like Steam came in, it's like, we only take 30%. And it's very interesting to see now, like, now that Epic has jumped in, it's like, well, now, and I think they had a whole blog post where they talked like 30% doesn't really make sense anymore, especially the way everything is digital and the way, like, the costs of like having to store all this data and have downloads, like those costs have diminished immensely over time. So in terms of, from their perspective, it's like they do have a lot of money, but they could probably just get away with the lower cut and still be a profitable game store. So and the 70-30 is just like a convention that's calcified over time. And so now I'm really interested to see like how many, I guess like how big Epic is going to go in terms of trying to recruit developers and how many games they're willing to put on their store initially. So we'll see. It's interesting times.
It really is.
Although I don't know why I was so surprised that they would waive that 5% because they're getting 18%.
Yeah,
so never
yeah,
mind.
yeah.
You were just like, yeah, they're waiving that. I'm like, oh, that sounds really good. And I'm like, oh, well, not really. They're still taking 18%.
Yeah,
but
but
it's still.
Yeah, and like if you're a store, if you're on like Steam, it's like
35,
30.
yeah.
It's 30% and then the 5%. So
Yeah,
that
that-
numbers adds up.
That 5%, that's a really smart move. I think Epic Games has been pretty smart as well recently. But yeah, that 5%, you think of like if Borderlands makes Unreal, like they probably have special deals because it's such a big game. But imagine 5% of every Borderlands game sold, and if they sell millions of copies, they're making millions of dollars on that little 5% cut.
Yep.
It's a little caveat, but or a little bit of a diversion, but yeah, that's part of the like, reason like I chose Unity, because they basically ask for like one lump sum and not a percentage of all your game's profits. Now that banks on whether you make good money with your game. If you don't, it doesn't really matter. But
Yeah, yeah.
5%.
Yeah, I noticed like with a bunch of stores now, at least I think, at least like reading up on Twitter and stuff, there seems to be a focus between, you know, what is sort of consumer oriented and what is like developer oriented. Like, oh, you know, what are our options if we want to be on the store? But that might not necessarily be as good if you're a consumer and you're like, well, how does this just makes things more expensive or something like that.
Yeah.
And then even among those things, it's like, you know, how big, right? If you have something big like Steam or Epic, where, you know, they have sort of the leeway or the push to be like, oh, this is the store and now people are going to use it. And then you have like small things like HIO where it's like, oh, you know, they're just indie games on here and, you know, whatever percentage you can decide. time, what goes where.
Right.
But you might not get as much exposure, so.
They used like Humble Bundle back in the day too.
Yeah.
And Humble has their own store now too, so.
Yeah, Humble has its own store. I Expect You to Die. I think that sale on a Humble Bundle just ended. So, a couple days late, but it's okay.
You should still buy it.
Still buy it anyway. It's a great game. To Pittsburgh Joe, does Schell Games only use Unity or have they used Unreal? Yes, we use both Unity and Unreal depending on the project, the client request, and so on. So we do use both
We use
game
other
engines.
engines too.
Say it again?
We use other engines also.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. The engineers would know. Yes. So, we do a lot. We do a little bit of everything. So that's a good question. Jacob, good to see you, man. Is Summer Jam possible in the Berg? Yes, we use both. Are you talking about a summer game jam? Jacob, I think is what you're referencing.
Well, so there are a lot of game jams. You can't, if you go online, there's pretty much like at least an online game jam held every week.
Every day.
Every day.
hour.
Pretty much. I bet if you really search, you could find one every day of the year.
Yeah, I mean, go on HIO, game jams.
Yep.
That's true.
So there's not a physical, we do have a board game jam, and that's explicitly for board games. It's a one-day jam, so it's not even overnight, which works out really well, because a board game, all you need is cardboard, paper, pens, markers, and we typically hold that in the fall. We don't have anything in the summer, mostly, the real reason is because a lot of the jam population is students, and summer, everyone's out doing stuff, like none of the schools are in session in
It's
the
also
summer.
like conventions.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of traveling and vacation. It's not a great time. I will say you should look for things like Ludum Dare. So although they're in April and
Yeah,
December now.
They used to be 3 times a year, now it's only 2 times a year.
Yeah, I don't remember the dates,
So
but
it might be more fall, winter
yeah,
as well.
but yeah, there's no summer Pittsburgh jam. Although if you want to make your own jam, you should go for it. Just get a bunch of your friends at your house or someone's house and just say, let's make a game over a weekend.
Go on a Discord, be like, hey, I want to host a jam. Maybe people want to help you out.
Yeah, we have had some people even here at Schell jump on itch.io and run a game jam on itch. And that's totally fine too. It's like people are just looking for some sort of constraint, and that's what you kind of get. Like Global Game Jam, it's really everybody is on a theme. That's what makes it fun. And those types of jams fun is that everybody's working off the same basis. It's not everybody just getting together and making the ideas they've always wanted to make. It's like, hey, what can we all come up with this theme? So if you just come up with a theme and say like, hey, this is a summer game jam, you can talk on the Bit Bridge, community, all that stuff. I'm sure there's people that would love to join.
So there you go, Jacob. If you want to do a summer game jam, do it and people will come. Awesome. Another question. Does Schell Games have plans for more virtual reality? Yes. We do.
We just announced something.
What's up? Well, yes. So we did announce that we are creating more content for I Expect You to Die. That's announced. We are creating a VR sword fighting game. That's announced, but more detail will be coming out later about that. Sorry, my computer went to sleep. We do. I put in the wrong password. So, the other question was what other stuff do we have going on? Any sneak peeks? We have a lot going on. 2019 for Schell Games is so far a very busy year, which is really awesome. The stuff that we are able to talk about, however, is pretty limited. So, no sneak peeks, but we're doing a lot of cool stuff. But one thing that you can, if you are in the Pittsburgh area, and we just announced this, our spring open house is May 9th at 6:30, 6:30 to 8:30. So if you are in and around the Pittsburgh area, it's open to the public. You can come in, see the studio, talk face to face to these lovely people, and you'll get a chance to demo a lot of the experiences that we are currently developing. Not all of them, but some of them. So that'd be really cool, and we hope that you are able to make it. Let's see.
Our spring open house is May 9th.
Have they heard of the new VR sickness cure involving a 50 hertz tone with a 3-watt bone conductor to the skull to make your brain ignore your inner ear?
That sounds like a lot of body hacking.
Sounds like a certain subset of people that'll work on it, and then it won't work on others.
Yeah, the bone's just correct shape for that part.
Right, yeah, the correct portion. Like,
Has anyone used like the
headphones for that?
the
No.
bone conducting headphones?
No. Are they good?
I have not used
Are
one
they weird?
either. I'm just interested. 'Cause,
Bone conductor.
yeah, because the idea is like they just
Yeah.
It's the same vibration that the sound waves would, but through your skull.
yeah.
And not, sound. So it's these silent headphones, but you hear them as if they're.
Head.
Sounds like a certain
I mean,
Your head's
I mean, that's how
speak.
sound works. It
Yeah.
just vibrates a thing in your ear. So we're clearly not doctors here. So.
Yeah.
So I guess, yeah, the short answer is no. We haven't heard of it, but there's been countless studies by universities, students, companies, organizations, like all over the place that are all trying to find that cure for motion sickness. Or cure for VR, sickness, what's causing it and all that stuff. At the end of the day, the solution always seems to be higher frame rate, higher resolution, and it's really just the technology's not there. It's not that there's something else that needs to be added to it. If anything, that sounds like a Band-Aid to some actual problem, which is just that like VR is not real reality anymore.
I always feel like there's going to be like, no matter how hard we work at it, in the same way like, there are always people who get motion sickness just from watching like an FPS being played. There's always going to be a percentage of people who probably, like VR is always going to be really tough for them, especially more intense VR simulations, no matter how good the technology gets. So,
Yeah. I'd be curious if that bone conducting whatever, if that was like the in-game audio was also like transmitted that way and it was somehow more internal. But I think, yeah, like until you can like replace your eardrums, which is your main source of like balance, like you're never gonna eliminate that 100%.
50 hertz is very specific.
Yeah, it's like,
it's
it
like-
sounds like a study or somebody just like pulled that number out of
Yeah.
thin air and just said like, yeah, that'll work.
Yeah, Joe, if you can send us more info about that, that'd be interesting to know. So, let's move on to the new games in 2019. What are you guys excited about? What have you guys seen? Is there a game that you haven't gotten to yet from 2018, 2017 that you guys are looking to play?
All of them.
All of them?
I think I picked up like 5 or 6 games in the holiday season, and I've played maybe 5 hours of all of them. So like Red Dead is like
Oh my god.
tens of
yeah.
hours that I need to put in, and I just haven't had the time. But yeah,
I'm still continuing to play Smash Brothers. So that's been the game I played all holiday basically. So and then they just released the new DLC character Piranha Plant yesterday, who I was playing, and Piranha Plant's really weird but fun. What am I looking forward to in 2019?
Anything more things have been announced?
I know one for sure. I'm looking forward to Metro Exodus, the new Metro
Ooh,
game.
okay.
Yeah.
That had been delayed a couple times, and it was just like this ambiguous. Like it's one of those games that was announced just a little too early, where you're kind of like, oh, I'm really excited about that, and then they're like coming out in 2 years, and you're like, all right, I'll wait. So that's finally coming out this month or February. I think it's like February 12th. So that's a lot of fun. If you haven't played it, really like narrative driven, but like first-person shooters. So if you like first-person shooters but can't quite get into like a full like RPG narrative like experience, it's kind of like a nice mix of the two.
So I've also been playing Smash, but one thing, so I'm not probably gonna play it, but if I was like younger, I probably definitely would, which is Kingdom Hearts 3, which just came out.
Yeah.
Because I think like when Kingdom Hearts 2 came out and I beat it, it's just like, oh man, I want to continue in this universe and see what happens. And then 10 years or more pass, and it's like, and then you kind of lose track of the story, and other games come out on and they're all on different platforms. But it's still really, I think it's still really cool that it finally came out. Yeah.
Very cool.
Oh yeah, Doom is. I'm looking forward to the new Doom, which apparently I was just looking through the list of anticipated games for 2019. So it's Doom Eternal. That's supposed to come out this year. So that'll be really awesome. So.
Yeah, actually, it's funny because I went through probably 3 of the big articles. I went through IGN's 50 games that you're excited about, SVG's 13 games that'll totally blow your mind in 2019.
I'm looking at Polygons.
And then Polygons, yeah. And so they have what, Ancestors, Humankind Odyssey.
Oh yeah, Anthem.
Yeah,
that's
Anthem.
coming out pretty soon,
Oh,
actually.
Yep. Yeah, I think Anthem's February?
Yeah, no, I think they have
Yeah.
a beta this Friday.
Oh, really? Oh, okay,
Yeah.
so like super soon.
Yeah,
Ah.
I gotta say.
That one, it's interesting.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Oh no, there's a gif of like the way that they transition from walking around to flying in their jetpack. The animation and effects in that game are ridiculous. It's like it's such a smooth transition. I'm
Yeah.
like, it's like you see it and it's like, oh, I'm jealous. I'm like jealous of the fact that these developers made this look so good. So
Yeah, Anthem. Okay, that might be my actually most excited one because everything else is a sequel or some sort of like connection to something that existed before. We haven't had very many new games. And Anthem is one of those, and I'm actually really curious. EA gets a lot of flack for the way that they run their things, and like Battlefront 2 is like a huge like uproar around the community, and so like everybody's lost trust in them. So I am very curious to see where this goes. If it was EA's attempt to be like, okay, we'll back off, we'll stop trying to be the publisher pushing things out too early, and like, what if you guys just get to make whatever you want to make? I feel like Anthem is that game. It just came out of probably some sort of internal game jam unit test, like some
E3 or it was it was at PAX West last year. And
Oh,
so I
cool.
played it there, and it's more Spelunky, which is all I need. So I put in like over 500 hours into Spelunky, so I'm just waiting for that sequel. So.
Get on those leaderboards.
Yeah,
Daily leaderboards.
yeah, no, I like because Spelunky, they have like it's procedurally generated, and
Okay.
one of the cool things is they have a daily challenge where everyone around the world gets the same seed, and the challenge is like you only get one chance. If you die, that's it. That's your run. And so, me and a couple of other friends, colleagues in the industry, we would compete for. Like back in 2013, 2014, pretty much every day, and trying to get on the top 10 leaderboards worldwide. And we
Yeah.
did it a few times. We did it
Nice.
a few times where it managed to survive the entire way through and get a really good time. So I'm pretty proud of that. So.
Yeah, that's impressive. Yeah, some of the other ones, Animal Crossing coming to the Switch.
Mhm.
People are excited about that. Yeah, Kingdom Hearts 3, Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. That's supposed to come out in 2019. Mortal Kombat 11, which is crazy. Mortal
Yeah,
Kombat
yeah.
11. But yeah, whenever we're looking at the new games that are coming out or new, brand new ideas, like, do you guys see some type of theme with the new games, or do you see like a mechanic that the people are using that you guys are interested in or excited about?
I don't know if it's this year is going to pan out to be the same. For the past couple years, everything's been open world. I don't know if that's a good thing. I know for Mirror's Edge 2, it was a terrible thing because they tried to generalize everything to fit in an open world environment, and it just diluted the experience. Where it went from like Mirror's Edge was my favorite game ever, not ever, but like one of my favorite games ever, and then Mirror's Edge 2 was like one of my least favorite games, and I bought it and was just severely disappointed. And I feel like that's just because there's no linear story to follow. But there's been so many games that have followed that trend. Including I think Anthem is going to be open world and open exploration, and like Destiny does it, and it's like there's these weird mixes. I think that's been a trend, but I don't know if that's going to continue this year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's sort of interesting. You're getting towards the end of this. I don't know if generations exist
Yeah.
anymore, but definitely things like the PS4 and the Xbox One are getting closer towards the end of their life cycle.
Yeah.
So you're seeing a lot of very mature sort of genre that's like, oh, here's like some of the things are going to be incredibly polished.
Mhm.
I don't know, but so in one way that's really good, but in another way it means like there's a lot less risk taking now when it comes
Yeah.
to the kind of games being made. So even though I'm looking forward to like Doom and Rage 2 and stuff, they all tend to be sequels at this point, and they're like, as Chris was saying, iterations of this sort of open world genre formula that's become really popular. And so it'll be, I guess, it'll be interesting to see like what the next jump is. Like whenever the PS5 or the Xbox, whatever,
Yeah.
comes out, like how people are gonna take advantage of the new technology there, so.
Yeah, those generation jumps are always really nice because Microsoft and Sony both kind of do like seed funding for those types of original game ideas as an attempt to like this is this new exclusive, this game you've never heard about and it only exists on our new console, you know, like come buy it now. And so the beginning of Generation 2 always end up with like a lot of experiments that most of them don't really succeed, but if they do, then it's awesome.
Yep.
But yeah, the development costs have turned into such a high thing. Like if you want to make a, like the gap between indie and like AAA is so huge now. It used to be like, oh, this is a $10 million project and here's like a $100,000 project. Like that gap was still pretty big, but now it's like, oh, like Call of Duties are costing hundreds of millions of dollars to make. Like Destiny was a $160 million project. It's like nobody really wants to bet $160 million on a game that they don't know will sell, which is why I was so impressed with Anthem and I'm excited for it because you know that there's like $100 million behind that thing. And if
Yeah.
it flunks, it's gonna be $100 million like flunk.
Yep.
But that's why we end up with so many like, oh, this is the 12th, you know, Call of Duty and the 17th like Assassin's Creed and like all of these other sequels on sequels.
Yeah.
I know at least with like indie games, like how there's, like how like, oh, it started like the indie platformer, and then it sort of went to like roguelikes, and then went to like one-hit brawlers. And then I think the recent trend now is more like maybe like Metrovanias, like Hollow Knight, or maybe something that's more like narrative driven. So I think it's been interesting to see just the trend there, where it's like, we know we're not gonna compete with like the big open world. I guess there are some like more open world like Stardew Valley, where it's like you're caring for something or you're raising something, but it's not like, oh, this is like a 300-hour open world quest thing. It's more like, oh, you know, you're in a small town and there's a subset of goals, but you're free to sort of explore in that area. Or it's just like a certain experience and you're sort of just playing through that and learning about, you know, someone's specific experience, which I think has been interesting to see.
Yeah. The other and the last thing that's, I think, probably the next generation consoles is really going to push is like this idea of games as a service. It's going to be just so you, like, it's going to be hard to not have a major title that doesn't have some sort of plan to like get people continuing playing for another
like
year or
DLCs
another
and
2 years.
stuff.
Yeah. And it's like, I know people don't love microtransactions and all that stuff, and they don't love the drip feed that often happens, but it's one of those things where it's like, it's hard to reconcile when you see some of the most popular, biggest selling titles are like, that's all they are. That's
Yeah.
all they are, so.
Yeah, that's probably like the largest like overall trend. Like Fortnite is a free game, but you may not consider it microtransactions because they're not asking for like maps and other little things. But every time you buy a little like hat, a new personalized item or whatever you're buying, that is their you know source of funds and all that stuff. I mean, last year it came out there was like over $2 billion
Yeah.
that Fortnite made, and it's a free game.
And the
the-
season passes are sort of brilliant in that it's basically every 3 to 4 months they're asking you to spend $20 to $30, and it is and it's technically optional, right? But so many players buy into it, and it's like that's as good as a subscription for them. So
What about games like players being able to cross-platform? What do you guys think about? Do you think that's growing? Do you think that's do you think it's shifting to a way like you talked about some platforms, you know, going towards the end of their life cycle? do you think that they're able to refresh by having games be available across platforms? Do you think that that's something that's coming, or just one-offs?
No, I think it's something, it's sort of interesting, something like Fortnite, right? You can
Mhm.
play that on pretty much anything, right? And that's, I think a big thing is a lot of, especially these big publishers, it's like if you have a game that's supposed to exist as a service, it doesn't make sense to have it exclusive to anything.
Yeah.
Because you want people to keep on playing it, and to keep on playing it no matter if it's either at home on your Xbox or PS4 or on the go with the Switch or your iPhone. I don't even know what else they could play on it, 'cause like even on, like if you're at work on your PC, it's like you want people to be able to play your game no matter where they are, so.
Yeah, and to that point, like, it's such a mature moment in the generations of consoles and everything that, like, it's no longer about trying to get units sold on your console. It's now just like games are becoming more of a service, and so it's like, oh, okay, there's this many millions on Xbox, this many millions on PS4, this is with the PC market, like, this is the kind of saturation point that we're at, and it's just sort of like, oh, if we want to add, 20-something million, 30 million, like, additional subscribers or whatever to our service, it's like, let's just, like, ship it to PS4 and port it over there. So the big hesitation used to be like, oh, if we make it cross-platform, then people on Xbox won't need to buy a PS4 to play with their friends. So that means that they're going to lose sales and vice versa. But now that it's such a mature market, I think those barriers are starting to be like coming down from that financial standpoint, and now people are realizing if they open it up, that you get more money because it's like Fortnite service. Like I think I can't remember the exact numbers, but it was millions of dollars on their like first month of having it out on like iOS, and it was just iOS, and it was only like 3 phones could run it, and so it's like they added 3 phones to support, and they made $10 million in like a month.
Or something like.
And it's like, how much did that cost to port? It's worth it.
Like PUBG, I think their largest market now is mobile, and the Chinese market, so.
Yeah.
Oh, and sorry,
Oh, no, go on.
the last thing I think, I keep on, it's like, oh yeah, there's this and there's that. Stuff like, I think like what Microsoft is doing with their Game Pass, I think basically like, I think Sony's gonna have a similar answer going forward.
Yeah.
I think that's actually gonna be a big selling point because I know a lot of friends who just have the Game Pass, and that's how they play all the new Microsoft releases. It's like, that's how they play Sea of Thieves, and that's how they play everything else, so.
I totally agree with you. I think what Microsoft is doing is just absolutely brilliant. Ever since the promotion of Phil Spencer just changing the Game Pass, all the moves that they've been making, the internal studios that they bought to support their games. I think you're right. I think that Sony and the others may follow.
Yeah.
And
Maybe not Nintendo.
maybe. I think they're okay. Yeah.
God, Nintendo, like, I'm mesmerized by them. They've just managed to like survive just long enough on like a terrible console to like be able to like launch a good one, and then they just like ride that for a while. But all their games are first party, and I could talk about that forever. But yeah, no, like Game Pass is really cool. I think that's what it's gonna turn into. People are getting so used to like everything in their lives is just saying like $10 a month, and I get this forever. Forever, but you have to pay that forever. Like that. Obviously you're paying that. You're not paying one lump sums, but the society at large, at least in the United States, has become like totally fine with that, and that's just kind of like normal. And so to think like, oh, I could pay $10 a month for Netflix, $10 a month for Xbox, and now I have my games, I have my movies and my TV shows, and that's just like $20 a month recurring.
Yeah. I mean, it's big because that's what it's replacing what used to be your cable fee.
Yeah.
Right.
Who has cable now?
Yeah. And so everybody's like, I have an extra $100 in my pocket.
Yeah.
But no,
Absolutely.
then you're cherry picking those services.
Yep.
That's a whole interesting thing too. You actually might. Never mind.
It ends up being the same.
Yeah, I was just about to say,
Probably.
like, after you cherry pick all your stuff, you pay about the same as you would with
After
cable.
you get your Hulu and your Netflix and your
So it's
5 other
actually-
subscription services.
Yeah, and it may cost more than original
Hey,
cable.
YouTube TV for the win, my friend.
Just as we planned.
Excellent. Chatterbox asks, do any of you remember The Binding of Isaac?
Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
They have like tons of like, sequels and reboots that they've done.
A lot of content expansions.
Yeah.
Very cool. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
all he
It's a
asked.
fun game.
Yeah,
It was good.
very cool. tongue surgery, great name.
Whoa.
If someone's New Year resolution was to learn some game development skills and possibly work in the industry, what advice would you give?
Make a game.
Join a game jam.
Game Jam, number
Game
one.
Jam.
All right, what else?
Game Jam's not bad.
Yeah.
I
Join
Yeah.
a game community that's online.
Oh,
Get help.
Like I guess you can do everything on a game. It's hard to do that as when you're first starting out. But I do think like doing like a small game jam as your first step. Just finding a tool, whether that be Unity or probably not Unreal to be honest, but like Unity or Game Maker or even something
Twine.
like Twine, right? And just making a small game, and then figuring out like, do I like being a programmer, or do I like doing art, or do I like design more? And then sort of once you know what your disciplines are, then starting to study those disciplines, I think that'll be your next step.
Yeah, unless you like all of them and you just do everything yourself.
Your one-man team.
Yeah.
And you could do that too.
Yeah, I
Whatever,
would.
yeah, works best.
Yeah, whatever works. Yeah, find what you want to do, because when you say like I want to work in I want to be a game developer, there's a lot of facets to that. So yeah, like Mike said, like figure out, is it design, is it art, is it programming, like whatever you want to do, and then I would just search YouTube of all like YouTube is a free resource if you're not sure you want to like invest in Udemy courses and like the time and financial side of that thing. Like you can just what I always say is like find something that you want to make and then just Google your way until you figure out how to make that. If you don't really have like a clear goal as to what kind of thing you want to do or what you want to make, you could search endlessly and watch a bunch of stuff, read a bunch of articles, and read a bunch of manuals, and then just end up with like a bunch of knowledge you can't put to use. So I would just find basically just make a game. Be like, how do I make Pong? And then just like Google search your way to like Pong in Unity, and I bet you there will be like 1,000 posts on Stack Overflow,
Oh, for
YouTube,
sure.
Twitter, throughout like the whole all of those resources that just show you like this is how you make Pong in Unity, or how do I make a first-person shooter. And then whatever one is the path of least resistance, like whatever one you find yourself doing, if it's a 3D model or it's the programming side or it's the level design side, if all of a sudden you found that was really fun and it didn't feel like work, then just be like, oh, that might be what I actually like to do, and then just explore that, and eventually you might be good enough that you can get hired to do that one job.
Yep.
Super general, that's always hard to answer, but like, yeah.
Let's see. Think another question: does Schell Games only use Unity, or have they tried Unreal? Yes, we actively use both, and more different game engines, as Mike said earlier. I do want to get to one trend that I've been kind of taking a look at in the industry, and I feel like it rose up with esports. But it's the rise of people using VR in games for fitness. I found that to be...
like Beat Saber?
Yeah, like Beat Saber, Creed, Rise to Glory, Sprint Vector, Super Hot VR. So you have these, and even one archery game, Hollow Point. You see, one VR is cool. And it kind of removes that aspect of going to the gym and going on a treadmill or going to a group fitness class. Instead, that you could be playing a game, moving, jumping, dodging, and or Beat Saber just fiercely hitting things. It's just been so interesting to me, and even just preparing. For today, just going on Google News and looking for fitness and gaming, there are probably 5 or 6 articles a day for the past couple weeks. Now maybe because it's the beginning of 2019, right?
Yeah.
So you do have that.
You're new me.
Yeah, exactly. It's like I hate the gym, but I love games. How can I do this? So I guess I'm just want to throw it out to you guys. Do you think that this is a trend that VR kind of escalated with or expedited with games, or do you think that this has always been here, and because VR is hot, that is becoming a topic again? Or I just want to know your thoughts.
I think it's been around for a while. I remember back with like the Wii Pad where you had the balance board thing.
Oh yeah,
that
like
was their,
Wii Fitness and everything.
Yeah, there's definitely like a market for people that just want to be fit, and there is a cross section of like I want to be entertained while I get fit, and people have tried to figure that out. Like Kinect was a huge one. Like Xbox was like, oh, this doesn't really work that great for games. Nobody's really making games for it, so maybe we could do that with like a fitness app. I know there was a couple like celebrity endorsed games, but it was like all based around like it'll track your body and you get points, and it's gamification of exercise. I think it's been around. I don't know if I've never played them, but like I don't know what the source of that is, but like I don't know. Do you have any sense on how successful they've been? Like it feels like Beat Saber's not an exercise game. It's just a like symptom of how active you are.
It's sort of like DDR back in the day.
Yeah.
There's a lot of like when DDR was very trendy and people are like, oh, I lost 100 pounds playing DDR. So, and Beat Saber is sort of in that same thing. It's not an exercise game, but the fact that you're moving so much, you're naturally in a 30-minute session going to be, by the end you'll be sweating if you're playing any of the reasonably strenuous levels. So I think it's sort of weird, right? Because it's not a huge market. But it's a very profitable market. I mean, that's what I see, like, especially now, because it's, as you're saying, the beginning of 2019, I see, like, so many ads for, like, the Peloton bike and everything, and it's like, people want to spend money on expensive devices to help them lose weight. So.
Yeah. I mean, I think VR is so good at putting you in another space, right? And so you don't have to be driving over to the gym when you could be, I don't know, shooting arrows in a medieval setting or something like that, or a futuristic setting. So I think it definitely, and it's not supposed to be exercise, but because you are physically moving, it is exercise, right? So, so it's like a way to have fun, but also move.
Yeah, that mental disconnect between like I'm working out now and I'm just happen to have fun. Like if I'm happen to work out, that definitely is easier to continue with it, because then it's not that mental like checkbox of like I am working out now, which can sometimes be a lack of motivation for some people. And yeah, like I wonder. I don't think anybody should make a VR game that's supposed to be exercise. Because I feel like as soon as you make it like supposed to be like a workout game, you're then going like, okay, why don't I just like work out then without this on my head? I feel like that could be like somebody could absorb that and be like, oh, if like people are working out and losing weight on Beat Saber, we should make an exercise game, and then it like does it sell at all?
It feels the difference between like if it's a game where you're active and you happen to exercise,
Right.
There's like. It's that old intrinsic versus extrinsic motivation. But yeah, I feel like if you design just a VR game for exercise, I'm sure they exist, but I wouldn't expect that to have mass popularity beyond like that niche of people with like, I want to be in VR and I want to exercise and I want to have like
would you rather exercise or would you rather dodge bullets, right?
Yep.
Like one thing sounds much cooler.
Yeah, exactly. So.
Yeah, it's funny that you guys mentioned that, because I found NorderTrack came out with a VR experience, and I haven't had enough time to really see what it does or looks like. But yeah, like I'd be super interested if somebody would do Beat Saber for like you were saying like 30 minutes versus NorderTrack VR for 30 minutes. And I think you're right. I think people would, because of the fun aspect of it, so crossing that line of exercise being in VR, I don't know.
Yeah, I think it just comes back to the old adage of like time flies when you're having fun. Like if you're sitting there going like, okay, 20 minutes into my workout, 30 minutes into my workout, it's like there's that tick and I'm kind of like, okay, I'm keeping track of time. But I know we have some members of the studio here that played Beat Saber last year for hours on end, and like if you talk to them afterwards, it'd be like, what'd you do? It's like, oh, I just had fun for like a couple hours, played some Beat Saber. They wouldn't tell you like I was doing an arm workout for 3 hours.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And even I found a Reddit thread of this gamer who did a workout regimen for, I think, for like 8 weeks or something. For 7 weeks. And lost 14 pounds, lost 4 inches in his waist, and he was covered by, VR Scout and Geek and Sundry.
Okay.
And yeah, it was, I'm sure there's some publicity stuff with it too, but it's just super interesting.
Remember, that's just aerobic. Everyone should all, if you're exercising, you should also weightlift. Blah, blah,
Yeah.
blah.
That's right. That's right. Don't neglect the weights, guys. Yeah. Very cool. All right, so we are almost through. So if you have any last minute questions, please feel free to throw them in the YouTube chat. Like we were saying, it's super cold out in Pittsburgh, and so we don't know what the road situation is going to be like. So we're going to get out at a reasonable amount of time. But while we wait on any final questions, I'll just go through. Okay, so I told you guys that I expect you guys coming out with new content. We're super excited about that, and super excited that others are super excited about that. So that's cool. Open house Thursday, May 9th at 6:30. Open to the public. We just ask that you register so we know how many people are coming. So that just helps us try to corral all of our developers, because it's a night, and so we want to make sure if we have a lot of people that we get a lot of developers for you guys to talk to. And other events going on, Jesse will be speaking on a panel at GDC with 5 other designers talking about I think the evolution of game design and what to expect in the future. So that'll be a super good panel. So I know there was a question about GDC by Pittsburgh Joe. So if you're going to be there, I highly recommend that you attend that session. The East Coast Game Conference, one of our game designers, Marlena, they will be speaking also in the design track, and that is April 16th through the 18th in Raleigh, North Carolina. So nice East Coast trip. So if you're on the East Coast, that's a really nice conference to go to. They've been growing every year.
Yeah, I'm from that area, so if you want food recommendations, I'm happy to share. There's a lot of good Southern eating in that area.
Very cool. Yeah, Mike will hook you up. Other than that,
What is Marlena speaking about?
she is speaking about. That's a good question.
Ooh.
Yeah, she's in the game design track. I want to say she's speaking about designing in VR.
Ooh, okay.
Marlena, she's done a lot of. She's been on a lot of our virtual reality projects and a lot of our research and development. So she's really done a lot of iterations with our VR best practices. So that would be a good one to go to as well.
It's a very nice conference. It's like nice and intimate. It's not huge like GDC, but there's a lot of, because that's right in the heartland of that's where Epic is and a couple of other studios. So there's a nice cross section of developers from the North Carolina area. So
And what's the name of the conference?
East Coast Games Conference. The very sort of generically named.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So Marlena is speaking on. I was incorrect. So she's speaking on verb trees, how a evocative phrase became a suite of design tools.
Ooh,
Sounds
that's
more like story oriented.
ooh,
Yeah, it does. Yeah,
interesting.
yeah.
I'll need to talk to her.
So yeah, that sounds super cool. So so it looks like we will be able to get out and test these roads. And we got a question.
One question.
Question to end on. Baron, excellent. It's good to see you. I was hoping you had a streak going, so I'm hoping we're going to miss you. Let's see. Oh, this is a good one. Any design problems that you've solved that you're particularly proud of? So this could be, yeah, anything. So game jam, something. Well, Baron, do you want it to be specific with a Schell Games project that we're able to talk about, or just any project that they have worked on? I think I'd rather go with that because that would give you guys more to work with. So design problems that you've solved that you're particularly proud of.
I've had a lot of fun with AR. It's one of the newer platforms. I don't know if there's any specific thing. I guess world space interface. So, but God, I don't even know. One thing. I guess it would be designing around. I don't have a magic bullet solution for you, but designing around So I did a lot of work last year in 2018 on the Magic Leap platform, and so with the Magic Leap platform, it's all your world, and there's no such thing as the game has a level, because that level is your living room or your house or wherever you happen to load up your phone or your Magic Leap for AR. That's been the most unique one, is trying to figure out what it means to be so adaptive that any possible world space level, and making sure that your game adapts to that, and UI and user interface all exists, and all the information is displayed, but you can't use basically your screen, since there isn't one. But
I have I guess a somewhat specific example. It's not from a Schell Games game, but it's from a game I made sort of independently along with Dan. And that was there's a game we made called Outdodge, and it was it's a little sort of we call it one-dimensional Pong. And there's a moment in which it's because it's a mobile game, it's mobile doesn't really have buttons or anything, right? And it's just sort of how do we give people control? And it's how do we, because we wanted both jumping and crouching. And there's a moment where it's oh, your crouch can just be part of your jump. Because as part of any time you're jumping in real life, you have to squat a little, and then you jump. And then, if we did that, then it tied into, it's oh, now anytime you want to crouch, you're sort of forced to jump. And that's sort of interesting. It means you're making a choice whenever you want to dodge something by crouching. So I thought it's a fun little bit of clever emergent design that I'm proud of. So.
Yeah, I think one thing for me recently was I was optimizing FX, and so that's very specific, but you run into all these things where hey, this water effect is 100 particles, but it looks the same if I just make it 20 and particles are slightly larger. There's just small tricks like that where it's oh, the sprite itself is on a transparent square, and there's a lot of transparency. If I just make that square smaller, or the mesh that's running on smaller, now it doesn't have to check that transparency, and suddenly the game is 5 frames faster for some reason, because you made it take up the whole screen. And it's just simple fixes where you don't think it would do a lot, but then it ends up actually helping out a lot.
Very cool. All right. Any other questions? All right. Well, thank you guys for sticking with us. Please, if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel so you get updates on polls on our community section of what we would like well, to hear from you, what you would like us to talk about on our next Dinner with the Devs. Follow us on Twitter, at Schell Games, Facebook, facebook.com/Schell Games. And you can find us on LinkedIn as well. In terms of jobs, we are still hiring. We're looking for a senior tech artist and a senior Unreal game engineer. So with these questions about Unity Unreal, yes indeed. So if you're interested, go to schellgames.com/careers and take a look at the job. Other than that, thank you guys, and we'll see you next month.